global agenda.
Give your head a shake. This is not a game.
As a reminder, my notion and my book of the fourth industrial revolution is that the innovations we are seeing today in terms of artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things, cloud computing, advanced robotics, and many others, together constitute a new phase in human life. Today, that is a reality. The fourth industrial revolution has become a reality, not just for the pioneers, but for a broad range of people and workers.
And that is why I've made it clear that my ministers in my government will be banned from participating in the World Economic Forum when I'm in government. Work for Canada. Work for Canada. If you want to go to Davos to the conference, make it a one-way ticket. But you can't be part of our government and working for a policy agenda that is against the interests of our people.
And I see the need for action. I see the need for a great reset. We can, and the World Economic Forum is very open and as an open platform to integrate everybody who is willing to address those issues in a spirit, which means to exercise here true global citizenship. Certainly the health industry, the digital industry will go out of this crisis strengthened. But we know that many industries which rely particularly on physical interaction will have difficulties to survive.
The honking will continue until freedom improves.
Continue. And the thing that's, I've made this point several times and I'll make it again here. There's a misconception by conservatives that, in America especially, there's different groups that the progressives latch onto to further their agenda. It's Muslim immigrants, it's transgender bathrooms, 1 month or whatever, so on and so forth. And the point I always beat into their heads is they don't really care about these groups. This is just whoever is a useful tool at the moment. And as soon as that group is defiant in any way, they're thrown into the rubbish bin, as you say.
We're not evil just because we don't want you to assume omnipotence and omnipresence. There is simply no pathway forward to the green and equitable utopia that necessitates the further impoverishment of the already poor, or the sacrifice of economic security and opportunity on the food, energy, and housing front. There is simply no pathway forward to the global utopia you hypothetically value that is dependent on force. What gives you the right to enforce your demands on other sovereign citizens equal in value to you? A better way forward would be to prioritize the problems that beset all of us on this still green, functional, and increasingly abundant planet, with the requisite focus and attention demanded of a true political class elected by the people, capable of and willing to look at everything, trying to fix where necessary, trying to maintain as much freedom and autonomy as possible, and stop simply capitalizing narcissistically on the mere appearance of action, knowledge, and virtue. We should obtain true cooperative consent from those affected, farmers, truckers, working class people, and work with them rather than forbidding them with your power or improving them so they will be finally worthy of your time and attention. Help replace dirty energy with clean if you must, but do it on your own dime. And make sure that the results are cheap and plentiful if you want to help the poor and the planet. The warning bells are ringing. Listen to them before they turn into sirens. We will not advance without resistance through the straits of your enforced privation. We will not allow you to steal and destroy the energy that makes our lives bearable and that produces our food and shelter and housing and the sporadic delights of modern life, just to address your existential terror, particularly when it will fail to do so in any case. We will not allow our children to be criticized first for having the temerity to merely exist, and then deprived of the prosperous and opportunity-rich future we strived so hard to prepare for them. We remain unconvinced that your frightened and self-congratulatory moralizing and intellectual pretension, ignorance of the limits of statistics, and misuse of arithmetic, that your declared emergency and the panic you sow because of it means that you should now be ceded all necessary authority. So, leave us alone You Machiavellian pretenders and virtue signalers, objecting to power, all the while you gathered around you madly. You sacrificers of the wealth and property of others. You would-be planetary saviors, leave us alone, to prosper or not, as a result of our own choices, as a result of our own actions. Leave us alone, or reap the whirlwind.
Listen to the bell toll, globalists. It tolls for thee. 0.
Well, if you guys have to keep putting up with me for much longer, you're probably going to be deciding on a different stream. But luckily enough, I have a friend of mine, and his name is Jay Shaw. He's going to join me tonight. Jay, how you doing out there?
I'm good, man. I'm good.
What are we on here? Episode number 8?
No, this is episode 7.
7? All right, I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit, and who can blame me? Because I'm excited about our show tonight. So we've had some weather today. How are you doing out there? How's everybody doing? Are you okay out there? Are you good?
By a round of applause.
By round of applause. If we had an applause track, we would roll it for sure. You okay? Are you? Tell me you're not. Emailing the government asking for MAID, because that's not a good idea. I hear that they're offering it quite willingly and freely. So don't do that. Don't email them. Tell them that there's something wrong with you, because even if you have maybe a twisted ankle, they might offer that. So don't do that.
That's right.
But we're not going to talk about that tonight. What I want to talk about is that we have a polar vortex. So it's interesting to me this past couple of years, we've had a discovery of new terminology for weather systems, and they never existed prior to this past year. And I find them quite interesting here in Canada, at least. So we had atmospheric rivers. Going around, and now we have polar vortexes. For me, this is sensationalism. This is holy shit, there's an atmospheric river, so basically we're going to tell you there's a bunch of rain coming, but make it sound crazy, and you're going to want to probably get a boat and abandon your property, and we're going to blame it all on climate change. And so
it's just a low pressure Arctic front. They've been happening. It happens. It's called winter.
Imagine that. We get precipitation in the winter in Canada.
There are high pressure systems and low pressure systems, and this happens to be a low pressure one that's coming from the Arctic region. The end.
Well,
and I see what you mean about like the reality TV kind of Chicken Little routine that goes on, and it gets very dramatic, right?
Yeah.
That's what you're speaking to, is the dramatic nature of it, the language that's directly made to actually have people be in an overreactive state of mind.
Right. Well, I mean, fear sells, right? We know this. Fear sells newspapers. It sells headlines, or rather, fear creates great headlines, which sells a whole bunch of newspapers and clicks and all these different things. So there's that. But more directly here, I'm referring to something what I would like to refer to as like a style of propaganda, and so most people see, climate as something, fairly critical. And Jay, you and I are both fairly sort of on the same page in this with this subject. And so
more aware than most of the liberal intelligentsia that's pushing this panic button on everyone else's behalf. That's so for sure.
Yeah, well, because we try and approach it with the science.
And we live on the fucking land and interact with it.
Well, there's that as well, but we try and approach it with actual science, not made up climatology. And so My first clip here I want to roll for you guys is just to give you an idea of what kind of hoax. And look down on the bottom here. As with every stream, you'll see what our subject matter is, as well as all our socials. So please follow us at the Rabbit Hole Guild on Telegram. You'll see it down here. Obviously, in YouTube, follow us, and you'll see some other info down the bottom. So obviously, here's where we're gonna roll into what the subject matter is, and I'm gonna roll this clip here since we're finishing up with. I guess Davos week was last week. We're still gonna finish kind of showing the end of that. And this clip here, Jay, just so you know what it is, I don't think I've shown this to you yet. This is in reference to Greta Thunberg being arrested. So this is all leading back to the climate change thing or the climate hoax thing, you decide. So this is the coverage or one reporter's take, rather, on the coverage of Greta Thunberg being arrested for a protest. So we'll roll this here. We'll be back in just about a minute and a half. All right.
Now, we showed a couple of climate protests last night, and I talked about how annoying and ridiculous they are. Well, there's been another one. Well, this time it's not specifically citing climate change, but it's targeting an Australian fossil fuel company nonetheless. Just have a look at this madness in Perth.
This painting is barely 100 years old. We have 50,000-year-old artwork that Woodside is destroying.
What a disgrace. Absolute disgrace. Art galleries now have to be run like jewellery stores, don't they? Everything behind glass. And just on this stuff, let's look a little more carefully at that arrest of Greta Thunberg in Germany. We joked last night about how it would have been a stunt, that she would have wanted to be arrested just for the media coverage. Well, the raw footage of the arrest actually bears this out.
You also want those for you, man?
Yeah, it was all very jolly, laughing along as the police held Greta for the photographers. I mean, she's normally so angry and bitter, but she's smiling and laughing when she's arrested. So anyway, they all got the shots they wanted before the police then walked her away for more shots that they wanted, I suppose. Just farcical, isn't it? Deceptive too. It's theatre, climate theatre. And most media just goes along with the charade.
So imagine that your climate savior may well just be an actress, and I find it quite amusing too that they ruined a painting that was potentially I don't know what that was worth. I don't know what that painting was. I couldn't find anything about it, but even the fact that it was 100 years old and being displayed and they spray painted it on, it's ruined forever. And what did that get them? What did that gain them? And what message did that send other than we're going to wreck things for what we believe is a likely or sort of a good cause? And I can't even I have no words for this. And Jay, maybe you want to sound in here a little bit because I'm almost wordless. I'm speechless and I don't know what to say about these fucking idiots ruining potentially priceless art for something they don't even know what they're talking about. Like, it's ridiculous, dude.
Yeah, it's very childish, right? It's a sign of a maladjusted adult, in my opinion. When you have adults who are doing things strictly for attention grabbing, shock value, etc., to try to prove their point, they're having a tantrum. That's what's really going on there. That's like a child having a tantrum, and probably a child having a tantrum who perhaps their upbringing was such that they don't really believe that there are or should be any consequences for anything you do in this life. And you destroy books, you destroy art, you're mud to me, because there's no need for that. It does the tribe absolutely zero good. You are like a net loss to humanity if you're doing things like that, in my opinion.
I agree, Jay. I agree wholeheartedly, and I can't believe that this is being condoned rather as an appropriate sort of activism in
Mhm.
regards to climate change. When really, again, we're talking about activists that have no actual knowledge about what they're, sort of what they're being activists about.
Yeah.
That's the sad thing. They think they're doing so. It's almost like a cult to me, in a
Yeah.
way.
It,
They think
it's a
they
lot like
actually are.
sorry, Scott.
No, go ahead.
It's a lot like this. Just to tie this in too, it's a lot like what we just saw down in Atlanta. A cop was shot, so another cop shot the person who shot his partner, and then the Antifa people decided to put out all over the internet that January 29th, or January 29th would be a day of January 21st, sorry, would be a day of violent retribution. And they did that, and they burned a lot of stuff. They torched a lot of cop cars, again, the looting, et cetera, et cetera. And then what did CNN do? But literally say, well, that's not actually violence because it's not against a person. It's not violent to burn a cop car. This is what CNN is saying, right? Like, this is the liberal side of things. It's like, well, they're having a reaction to something and we have to tolerate that. Do you tolerate a child kicking and screaming on the floor in a grocery store? No, you don't.
Well,
And you don't
no,
do it for an
you
adult.
shouldn't. You shouldn't, but apparently now you do.
Yeah.
And can you imagine, Jay, the sentiment if there had been, say, I don't know, some right-wing conservatives burning flags on Parliament Hill during the Freedom Convoy protests?
Oh
Can you
yeah,
ima- can,
night and day difference. Night and day difference. Like, this
so
was a violent mob mentality, disgusting thing. Not a protest, not a demonstration.
no,
It was pure
no.
violent outburst, tantrum.
And but this is condoned. This is condoned as being acceptable political discourse,
Yeah,
if
yeah.
you will.
It's unacceptable. It truly
It
is.
is. It is. It is.
Like at this point, the damage, the price tag that comes with it, what Antifa has done in the last 2.5 years, it's $2.6 billion. That's how much money they've cost the American and Canadian government.
So $2.6 billion. And you got to figure that out of that $2.6 billion, they probably could have spent $500,000 and fixed the problem.
Oh yeah.
And what I mean by fixing the problem is not something violent, so nobody gets up our ass about that. What I mean is squashing the leaders of this Antifa movement very easily and completely with very little funding because they're all violent and they're all extremists. And they
The
like to
FBI and
label
the
everybody
ATF
else.
could have arrested them all in a weekend.
Well, I mean, that's just it, but they don't, because somehow, for some reason, well, we're talking about the States now, and this is a completely different matter, but however, somehow, for some reason, the DOJ, the FBI have decided they side with the Democrats. And it doesn't matter if somebody's, violating any number of the laws in the States, as long as they're not going against the Democrats, they're fine. And that should scare a lot of people. I hope it scares some people out there. It certainly scares me, and I'm not easily scared, I'll tell you that. But let's get back on track here. So we're talking about Greta Thunberg, who I can basically not stand. She makes me want to vomit. And so I tried to just give you guys an idea of what we're talking about here. So most of the world sees her as the climate activist, the climate savior. And I don't think a lot of the world knows where she comes from and what she's about. And so that first little bit, I was hoping gave everybody an idea of where she's going and what she's trying to accomplish, which is a whole bunch of acting. and appearing to be some sort of activist and being arrested in some sort of, basically put on Hollywood style theatrical, and carried, in good humor, laughing about her arrest, to wherever they carried to probably likely to a limousine. And so this is the person you championed as your climate savior. And here, I just want to roll now, Jay, for us, the video of her walking through Davos, which is how we're going to close off Davos, which is Rebel News in a scrum. And I'm only going to play, I think, about a minute and a half, 2 minutes of it, just because it's very long and it's kind of hard to watch. But it's I think 2.5 or 2 minutes of Greta Thunberg walking in a scrum through Davos. And here's some real questions. And everybody who used to find her, I hope at least, everybody used to find her as a climate savior and climate activist, will see her for what she really is, because she's really just an actress. And hopefully that leads you on a bit of a path down the rabbit hole. Here we go.
Greta, would you say you're a child actor? Are you a child actor or an expert? How would you describe yourself? Ezra Levant here for Rebel News. I'm standing outside the CNBC studio, the same one where the vice president threatened to clock our friend Avi Yemini. Of course, it's where all the VVIPs pop by to give their propaganda message, dutifully transcribed by the media party here.
How dare you?
It is the most important person in the world, according to the World Economic Forum. It is young Greta Thunberg. So we'll see if we can catch a minute of the young lady's time. Greta, how many times did you rehearse your arrest at the German coal mine? How many times did you rehearse it? Because it looked staged. Is it true? How many times did you rehearse your arrest? Greta, how many times did you film your arrest, and why was it staged that way?
Greta, considering you've not spent much time in school, how do you know so much about climate change?
Greta, maybe you want to talk to a real journalist. What did you talk? Do you here in Davos? Was it successful?
Greta, as a real journalist, is climate change as real as your arrest?
Greta, how far are you willing to go? You're willing to break the law. Will you renounce violence? Will you renounce violence, Greta? Or do you support Antifa? You've worn an Antifa shirt before. Are you in favor of Antifa?
Greta, how did you get here today? What was your climate footprint in traveling here?
What's your plan while you're here, Greta?
Vibe. Will we have a Fridays for Future demo tomorrow here?
Greta, how do you feel about discussing climate change with the delegates here when nearly all of them take private jets? Do you think at least the fact these delegates take private jets is a bad thing against, what you believe in? All of this could be done via Zoom, so surely you should be encouraging all the delegates here, especially the likes of US Special Envoy John Kerry for Special Envoy for Climate Change. Surely you should be saying to these people, you should be doing this via Zoom with a much smaller carbon footprint, surely?
So, Jay, I don't think you've seen that clip. I want to get your reaction to that. I know what my sentiment is, and I think you should give everybody your reaction to that, because I'd like your take.
Well, my reaction to that is the typically liberal. That's literally what anybody on the liberal side of things does now. There's no questions answered. Nobody ever answers any questions. They just simply they either don't say anything, or they give some reason why they can't tell you the truth, and they avoid any and all actual discussion. They avoid debate. You won't catch, with the exception of a few reporters, you won't catch anybody on the liberal side besides crazy old Sam Harris, who is willing to have a debate with Jordan Peterson or Ben Shapiro. College kids will stand up and do it, but nobody will actually get in the ring on it. Nobody will actually have the discussion. They'll write articles that are over dramatic. They'll produce over dramatic documentary style videos, as they have been doing ever since Al Gore. Al Gore created the industry of climate panic video cinematography, and you know, it made a lot of people a lot of money so far, and probably will for some time to come. And Greta Thunberg is another example. She basically had her little tantrum at the age of 12. People put her in front of the world, and she's essentially retired. She'll live off of this forever, probably, and unjustifiably so. And that's pretty. It's pretty grotesque. It's really grotesque. It's like watching Macaulay Culkin. You know, like that's how I see it. Yeah, fiction.
Fair enough. Fair enough. And I always enjoy your take on this shit, Jay, because you know, we all have our own different perspectives and our own different opinions. And what I admire about you is that you stay as center to the line as possible. And I can't say the same about myself. I don't. I'm a bit more
Nobody has to.
I'm a bit more conservative leaning, but what I admire about you is that you will be on both sides equally. You're more centrist than most people, and so people should know that. So you know, we're not a right wing or a conservative podcast. We are, for the most part, I think, very center, with a bit of right lean. So that should tell you that this is not just about right left, and we want to, as with every podcast, as with every stream, we try and tell you we're trying to get away from the divisiveness and bring everybody back to where Canada used to be, which was, hey, we can all have disagreements and different points of view over a Timmy's at the coffee shop, as opposed to finding the need to stand in a line and say you are allowed in here and you are not, over politics. Because that's what this was. This wasn't about medicine. This wasn't about your health. It was about politics. And none of what's going on right now, like, so, you know, they're announcing for us here in BC, we're going to have a polar vortex. Prior to that, we were going to have an atmospheric river. And tell me when you ever heard that terminology before. You never did. And it's because it doesn't sell headlines.
Yeah.
And the planet is growing and changing, as a planet does, as it will continue to do, with or without our input. And they want to capitalize on this by creating things like a carbon tax here in Canada, and by shutting down certain industries and promoting others, all in an aim for a further agenda. And I think, Jay, you have a couple of clips you want to roll that are, at least one has a slight tie-in here. Do you want to introduce those?
Yeah, let's do that. So what we've got here, hang on, just give me 1 second, folks. So the first one we have here is an update. We haven't covered this for a bit. You know, we were both covering this sort of independently during the convoy and during the Inquiry Act and etc. But now we've got an update from Keith Wilson about the legal proceedings of the Emergency Act, and that was on Viva Frei. He always gets a good long interview with Keith. That was on Saturday. I really strongly recommend that everybody go and watch that. I'm not going to break it down for you. It's done very well by Keith Wilson himself. He has a very unique ability to slip out of his legalese and keep you apprised without getting lost in all the word salad. And so we'll roll that here.
We started prepping for the inquiry actually probably about the Thursday before February 14th, when the Emergencies Act was invoked, because that's when we first started hearing very solid rumors. This is back while we were in Ottawa, when you were in Ottawa during the protest. And the reason was we were hearing these strong rumors that the federal government was looking at invoking the Emergencies Act. So we studied the Emergencies Act, you know, in amongst all our spare time.
Our rule of law violently suppressed the most peaceful protest Canada's ever seen. There was a chat before that said like this was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. I did not have any idea how monumental this was when I was down there.
The Freedom Board and others are calling on Canadians on Saturday, the 29th of January, to commemorate the protest by flying a flag on their vehicle, by going, if you want, to stand on that overpass and hold your flag for an hour and let some people honk at you. We're encouraging people to do on that Saturday something, if they feel they want to commemorate the first anniversary of the convoy, to go on Saturday, the 29th of January, which corresponds with when the convoy arrived in Ottawa, and do something individual. There's no plan to organize a new convoy or a new big protest somewhere. These other groups trying to do that kind of thing and they keep collapsing. They're just encouraging Canadians to take that Saturday to reflect on how these Canadians came together to create so much hope that was so desperately needed.
Apparently, Eva Chipiak is in the chat. Eva, welcome.
There you have it. There's, in my opinion, a hero, certainly in our country, in Keith Wilson, who is a phenomenal lawyer, barrister, solicitor. Here they can be both. Some countries they can't. Did a bang up job. Was a representative of the Freedom Convoy, and it's nice to see that he's talking to Viva there and getting some coverage, because the mainstream media won't cover him, Jay, and I think that's a very good sign in a good way, and I mean that legitimately in a good way. If they won't cover him, that must mean that they don't want to hear what he has to say, and they don't want anybody else to hear what he has to say. So that's a good thing.
And I expect at some point, Viva expects at some point to get Brandon Miller on for an interview in the near future. Additionally, I think we could probably expect that that Keith Wilson will at some point be on the Jordan Peterson podcast as well, and I look forward to that.
As do I. And for those of you who may not know, we're talking about what happened here in Canada with the Freedom Convoy. There was what occurred was there was an Emergencies Act invocation, which is the highest sort of basically form of martial law in our country, invoked for a peaceful protest of people who had bouncy castles and horns honking, and what they have hot tubs and music playing and stuff, and this was the basis of an Emergencies Act, coupled with blaming part of it at least on the fictional meme country of Diagolon, which is the other embarrassment. And I think that's the problem, and I think that's what's going on here in Canada, is that the government now is so embarrassed by their actions and by their reactions that they're just scrambling to eliminate that from existence. And we've seen that, we've seen that with the cancellation of Jeremy Mackenzie. We've seen that with the sort of the lack of media coverage over anything relevant to the Emergencies Act inquiry, and Keith Wilson, who should be a media sensation right now in Canada, and has no coverage on any mainstream media. And in any other case, certainly of this magnitude, you would have seen Keith Wilson's face on every newspaper, on every website, on every channel, all over the place. And oddly, he's gotten no coverage anywhere except for on independent media and online and stuff, and that should tell everybody something. So I'll tie this all back in for everybody. We've been all over the place in the stream, so I'll tie this all back in for everybody. Is what we're dealing with here is what we always like to do on the rabbit hole, or in the rabbit hole, is delve down and figure out why this is all going on and where this is all coming from and why they're doing these things. And you have, the evidence in front of you. We try and break it down and be super easy going with it and try not to make it too conspiratorial. But it's there. And I mean, it should be evidenced in what we present and what's available to you. And you sometimes you have to look for a lot of this shit, and that's unfortunate. It shouldn't be that way. And like I just said, Keith Wilson should be a mainstream media superstar, but he's not. And he took on the government of Canada, for fuck's sakes. When has a lawyer ever done that in the history of Canada? ever.
We've got the Peckford appeal coming up too. Before we diverge too far away from that, I did want to let everybody know one interesting thing. One of my friends over in Europe notified me, somebody who watches the human rights court, very like a hawk to see what's happening, what's on the docket. And while it's not on the docket yet, someone has submitted a claim against the Canadian government related to violation of Charter of Rights. And that firm is actually a firm in the United States. And the only connection that I can find here is that there are 4 different truckers unions that all employ that particular firm. And it's one of the very few that can practice international law like you do at in The Hague and in Geneva and so on. And in Canada, we only have a few as well, and they all work at the Justice Center because that's our chartered, our Geneva chartered, our only Geneva chartered law firm in Canada. And Keith Wilson is also qualified to do that at his firm as well in St. Albert.
He is King's Counsel, right? Now, no longer Queen's Counsel, King's Counsel.
Yeah, he's considered King's Counsel. So that's interesting.
He's a higher end form of lawyer.
Yeah, and so that's interesting. You can't see the brief. The brief has been filed with the International Court, and at some point they will have a brief public debate over that before deciding whether they're going to allow that particular firm to bring that legal action forward. Now, I've notified Mr. Viva there to possibly look into that or see if Mr. Barnes has any input on that as well. But so far, that's all I've got for you. Somebody has filed. That's as far as it goes. But it is with the Human Rights Court, and it's against the government of Canada.
Yeah. Wicked. Good stuff, Jay. And that's like for those of you that aren't grasping what's being said here, there's a movement, an illegal movement, not illegal, but a legal movement being put forth against the government from all kinds of different directions. And I'm quite interested to see how they get out of this shit, because I don't think there's a way out. There's so many different directions. They're coming at them from every direction, and they are all legally sound. None of these attorneys are going to take any of this on. They're not going to try and challenge the Canadian government without a sure bet that they're going to win.
And so not without somebody paying a lot of money also.
Well, absolutely. I mean, none of this is cheap, and none of this is free. But that said, just think of what's going on in our country and reference that to the fact that there's people paying for attorneys who are like I said, King's Counsel, Keith Wilson, to fight the government. This should tell you some shit. I mean, this should tell you some shit for sure.
Well, the grand jury has convened in Florida as well. Currently, Brett Weinstein and a distinguished panel, Jay Beccaria, Kevin Hill. These are people who were shut down during COVID and basically demonetized, canceled wherever possible, et cetera, and now they're part of a grand jury investigation into Pfizer, the CDC. There's a number of different agencies that Florida has ordered this grand jury investigation into. And so, and that's, again, we're just waiting for a legal precedent to be established. And if you look back in time, you can look at many examples of this. There's been many class actions of this type involving lead, asbestos. It starts with one ruling, and then it's a domino effect. You just need one judge to have the balls to actually set that precedent, and then the floodgates open. And we will get to the bottom of this, and people will pay for what they've done.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, for sure. We just need somebody with balls, and we're seeing some of that. It's hard to say what the justices and the judges and stuff will do in our country with some of this stuff because we don't know whether they're conservative leaning or liberal leaning. One could assume that very many of them will be liberal leaning because several of them at least were appointed by our current liberal government, but we'll see what happens. Ultimately they can't really, like, you have to remember that, like, all of this is based on law, right? So whether you lean one way politically or the other way, you have to have a way to back it up. And when there is not a way to back that up, then there will be holes in it and people can take that apart later. And so a judge or a justice that makes that decision at any point, if he has that picked apart, you know, he's ruined his career. So, you know, they're all in it for money. There's not, you know, there's everybody's in this for money. It's not about anything else. So at the end of the day, whether you're left leaning or right leaning, if you're not getting your paycheck and you can't pay for your yacht, you have a problem with that current government. So
yeah, the market calls the shots.
Exactly.
Still, well, less so than before. You know, and in previous podcasts we discussed when we switched from the Austrian economics to the kind of the quantitative easing, the QE financial system, and then now the ESG system. But Austrian economics is doing well. Gold, you know, you can tell this because gold is on its way up, as we pointed out it was going to. It's nearing 2,000 now, all-time high. It's 8% above its 200-day moving average, and I think it's. Sorry, go ahead.
Can I just add one thing for any of you out there who took our tip and invested in gold and made a little bit of money? If you want to kick us back about $3 each to buy a beer, we'll accept that, and Jay will tell you how to do that later in the stream. Carry on, my friend. Just a beer fun.
Yeah, that's right. So that's sorry, I lost my train of thought there.
That's my fault. I'm sorry, Jay.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
You're talking about gold.
Yeah, that's right. So gold is up around 2,000 now. Now, when I say that, do not, under any circumstances, buy gold right now. You missed it. It's up. Don't go anywhere near it unless it gets below about 1,900. That's a pretty safe bet. But right now, you're just going to be paying a premium. Hold off till there's a dip. We'll see that. We'll let you know. Buy it low so that you can make some money off it if you need to sell it. You know, don't build your rainy day fund out of expensive gold. Build it out of gold that's at a discount, and we'll keep you apprised of that. Bitcoin's also up. Bitcoin and gold are moving independently at this time of the NASDAQ, the Toronto Stock Exchange, the Wall Street Stock Exchange. And so there's a bit of a decoupling going on, and that shows decentralization. That shows that our numbers are growing because the stock market is still tanking, like it's still dropping, and gold and some cryptos, most cryptos, are going up and have been for a couple weeks. And so this is new. This is new. Generally speaking, crypto and Bitcoin have to wait for the stock market to correct, and then they will eventually follow the stock market. In this case, people are not waiting for the stock market. They're saying this asset is going up. I'm ready to get some of that, and they're doing it with gold and crypto. So, you know, we live in wonderful times. We live in interesting times, and we're living in a time where Austrian economics is clawing its way back, and that is essentially the free market clawing its way back from this ESG system that we've been mired in. And we just got to keep that going. So, you know, look into it. Follow Coin Bureau on YouTube and look into how it would be wise for you to start investing outside of the traditional means. And it's not, don't take anything out of something that it's tied up into, just diversify. You know, put a little something in something else so that you're covered. This is called hedging. You know, it's safe. You want to do that.
Yeah, little bits here and there. Another hint for everybody. What you can do is download any number of apps, Kraken included, and just have a mock account. So give yourself a month and just put little bits here and
Practice.
there and see how you do and practice and watch it. Because the most critical part here is to watch it and see what the trends are and study it. Watch some YouTube videos. It's very readily available. The information that's there, you can make money free. People have put it out there for you. So what I recommend for everybody is download some sort of that, Kraken or otherwise. And what are you showing us there, Jay?
Look at the coins, pick the ones you like, and just do it for fun. Write down that coin and how much money you would put into it this month, and then follow it over a month, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and establish a thesis, establish a concept. Watch people talking about this, get involved in the conversation, and decide, you know what, here's something that's going to work in crypto eventually. This company's doing it. They're working really hard. They got a lot of people over there. This would be a smart choice. Put $50 and then watch it, and then do that with another one and see what works and what doesn't, and just
100%.
play around with it for fun.
100%. And so between Jay and I, we do a lot of research politically and geopolitically and all these different things, and in different sectors. So being able to bring you a tip like that was out of research, and gladly, we're again not financial advisors or forecasters of any kind. We'll always say that, but we just take our observations and bring them to you. And those of you that followed these observations would have made money. So let's just let it sort of suffice it to say that we'll do the work for you, hopefully, and have some fun, obviously in the crypto part, and listen to Jay. He knows his shit about crypto, at least in so far as what's going on, and take that information in. Don't let us be the forecasters or the deciders. Don't let us be the advisors. Just take the information we present to you and then decide for yourself if you think it's valid. Research it. Don't base anything you do on what we say, but so far you should be doing okay.
I'll point you to a path that you might want to explore, and tell you who can tell you more about that path.
Right.
And because I want you empowered. I want to empower people. I'm not here as a gimmick. I'm not here to fucking curry favor or popularity or anything else. It's just, I just want to empower people. And that's how you do it, by giving them the way to find the information. Because spitting out statistics doesn't do shit for anybody.
No. And it's not very exciting either. I mean, let's face it. Nobody wants to hear fucking numbers and bullshit. It's fucking garbage.
It's really boring.
I don't want to hear it. But I'm willing to do the research for all of you lovely people out there, because I love you. All of you in the chat here. I think we have, let's see what's going on in the chat here, Jack. Can we take a break for the chat here?
Yeah, let's take a look. Yeah.
Golden Beer. Oh, there's Erica. Where's the hat? All right.
Oh, no hat this week. No, that's special occasions only.
it's apparently it's being requested, Jay. Apparently your hat's quite popular, so I think maybe you might want to consider giving the fans what they want. What do you think, Jay? Not today, obviously. You're not prepped, but
I think the Mad Hatter has to wear a different hat every episode. Is probably what the deal is. Because I'm mad about hats.
Fair enough. All right.
Or maybe the hat for Sundays. Sundays. We'll make that a Sunday thing. It's kind of fancy like that, I guess. It's a Sunday best thing.
Yeah. There you go. Sunday best. We are not on our best on Sunday. We're usually on our best never, but you're here, so clearly that says something.
I can't even load the chat. Breaker, my chat won't load.
I got all the love here in the chat. I thought it was Mr. Peanut. So Erica says, here, I can display the chat for you here. Here you go. Can you see this here, Jay?
Hang on. I gotta scroll back up now. Can I? No, I can't.
No, it should just be in your window, just below your window in the restream display there. It should be displayed for you.
Yeah, I've just got the scrolling wheel. It's doing I'm loading.
I'm loading. All right. Well, it says I thought it was a Mr. Peanut hat.
It's actually a really nice one. Heather bought me that. It's
Oh.
Irish wool. It's made of Irish wool, that one.
The other,
Lovely.
I guess the other comment going along with that, and maybe this is something you got from Heather as well, is I wanted to see the fancy walking stick.
Oh, I have a really, really fancy bow staff that I use as a walking stick as well, but it's a brass banded bow staff. It's a 6 foot 4 inch solid fur 6 pound bow staff. That's my walking
6
stick.
pound must be
Yeah.
fairly thin. And so 6'4". How tall are you, Jay?
I'm bordering on 6'1".
So you're carrying this staff just slightly taller than you. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. I trained to use that. I know how to break skulls with that thing.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I know how to break skulls with a 6.5 millimeter Creedmoor from 400 yards away, if that helps.
I've got I carry the 20 gauge in the mountaineering pack with me. So I've got that too, but yeah, the walking stick is just always in my hand, and if something came up and surprised me, they'd have, brass, 6 pounds of brass at high velocity right in the side of their head.
Mhm. Some people carry a staff, some people carry a shotgun for close range, but
Yeah, both.
Who am I to judge?
Actually, I have a combat shovel too that I carry. I usually have a combat shovel right there, right on here on my pack. The shotgun's on the top. It's got a harness on the top, and then I've got the staff, and then I usually have my Bowie knife on my left hip. So I'm kind of loaded for bear, like several waves. If the shotgun doesn't stop them, it'll probably phase them enough that I can pull out something that's bladed, and if not, the stick. Yeah.
Cool.
So violent.
So violent. Such a this went a direction I didn't expect. I mean, for those of you at home, hey, it is what it is. You get what you get, I guess. You had one clip left here, Jay. Did you want to show that, or
You could eat or be eaten. That's the deal, right? Like, you're a mammal in an ecosystem.
100%? And I'm fucking hungry. Let me tell you.
And it's survival. Like, you gotta, if you want to live, you have to make a serious attempt. Last video here, we're just gonna lighten it up a little bit, and this is not a pronouncement or any sort of a manifesto or anything like that. It's just a cool thing to think about. It's existential. It's the next time you're token on a number, maybe go and check this out on Lex Friedman. It's a pretty wild, in-depth discussion, and you get to watch a genius insulting the shit out of Neil deGrasse Tyson, which is always a fantastic activity. Here we go.
Any kind of judgment on it being a lesser being or not. It's like saying you have nothing to learn by talking to a baby. You have lots to learn, probably more than you do talking to somebody that's 90. So, yeah, so I think they absolutely would.
So whatever the phenomena is that is human, there would be an inkling of the same kind of phenomenon within alien species, and they would be seeking that same.
I think there's got to be some features of us that are universal. And I think the ones that are most interesting, and I hope I live in an interesting universe, are the ones that are driven by our curiosity and the fact that our intelligence allows us to do things that the universe wouldn't be able to do without things like us existing.
We're going to define a lot of terms. One of them is interesting.
Yes.
That's a very interesting term to try to define. Lee, what do you think? Are humans interesting for aliens?
Well, let's take it from our perspective. We want to go find aliens as a species quite desperately. So if we put the shoe on the other foot, of course we're interesting. But I'm wondering, and assuming that we're at the right technological capability to go searching for aliens, then that's interesting. So what I mean is, if there needs to be a massive leap in technology that we don't have, how will aliens prioritize coming to Earth and other places? But I do think that they would come and find us.
First encounter with another lineage or example of life would be antagonistic. I think, yeah, and I think there's this kind of assumption. I mean, going back to Neil deGrasse Tyson's quote, I mean, it kind of bothers me because I mean, I'm a physicist, so I know we have a lot of egos about how much we can describe the world, but that there's this like, because we understand fundamental physics so well, we understand alien life and we can kind of extrapolate. And I just think that we don't. And the quest there is really, really to understand something totally new about the universe. And that thing just happens to be us.
I agree. There's something else more profound. I think Neil is just he's just trying to stir the pot. I would say from a contingency point of view, I want to know how many ways does the universe build structures, build memories, right? And then I want to know if those memories can interact with each other. And if you have two different origins of life and then origins of intelligence, and then these things become conscious, surely you want to go and talk to them and figure out what commonalities you share.
Now, what the fuck was Jay? You said this was on a lighter note. That's some heavy shit. Like, you're like,
we're talking about aliens.
Lighter note. It's gonna be fucking okay. Fair enough.
Aliens. Aliens, and that some physicists are just basically trying to suppress any thoughts and ideas that we might have about the out there. Neil deGrasse Tyson being the example where he's saying, no, there's no other life in the universe. And he's the only physicist who says that. But Neil deGrasse Tyson's career is essentially like a really narcissistic professor who just writes books, never does experiments, never proves any theorem. He just basically pontificates to everybody. And one of his pontifications is there's nothing else out in the universe. This is
which is an absurd claim. You can never make that claim because he's never been beyond the universe. So it's fucking retarded. But either way,
it's mathematically impossible as well. Like just
absolutely, it is. Absolutely. Yeah. We don't have to get into that. But what I want to say again, rewind here. That wasn't like, you're like on a lighter note. Work with me here, brother.
That's a light topic to me because it's a purely hypothetical topic. There's no proof. Nobody's right, nobody's wrong. So it's like it's a fun discussion that you can have because in the end, it's a debate where nobody wins and nobody loses. Right? So it's like a practice discussion.
Fair enough. I got you.
So that being said, and it gets a lot like that. I guess that episode is a very lighthearted one for Lex for that same reason, because they're sort of saying, okay, use your imagination, take your brilliant mind and push your imagination way out there, and just don't have any shame about it, and let's have some fun. So it's a really great episode. If anybody wants to go check it out, it's a doozy. It's 4 hours and 8 minutes on the Lex Friedman episode 229. And at the start of it, the one awesome part that I didn't get in the clip because I kind of screwed up and deleted the wrong thing. At the start, Lex introduces Lee Cronin as the physical manifestation of Rick from Rick and Morty.
Hilarious. And just so everybody knows, we had some technical glitches getting going this morning, or rather this evening, tonight, whatever time zone we're in. So that is why we are, sort of closing things off at 9:30 as opposed to 9 or what have you. Generally speaking, we try and roll at 7:30 on Tuesdays, 8 Thursdays, 8 Sundays. However, we had some uploading issues and some different technical issues, but we still pulled it together, and we still love you guys so much for joining us.
Yeah.
So thank you for both of us, Jay and Scott.
Should we do the hydro video for outro again?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, let's give the hydro video for outro.
Awesome.
We can go ahead and roll that.
On Thursday, we're rolling it at 8 our time, so 10 Eastern. We'll be here. I'm personally hoping that one of these episodes we're going to be here and Rumble at the same time, because we do want to we do want to eventually transition away from YouTube in general, to decentralize and decouple.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
baby steps.
For sure, and baby stuff for sure. And for on another note, we're gonna do something else in the next later streams. Certainly, once we get established on Rumble, or at least get our stream going on Rumble, and we will figure that out before you guys know it. But we're gonna do another little thing, Jay. You and I talked about this before, so I'm just gonna announce it to the world without having discussed it with you. After all of our streams, we're gonna have kind of like the special paywall kind of version of us, although we don't have a paywall version. But it's just gonna be kind of the breakdown, the let loose. We'll have our beers, we'll be joking, we'll be swearing, we'll be doing all the things we don't do on camera and in our stream, so that we can kind of keep it somewhat, I don't know, politically correct, I guess, whatever. But so we're thinking of doing that little extra add-on at the end. So maybe 30 minutes after the stream, just to wind down, you guys can give us shit in the stream chat, because we'll keep it going, but just bring it to a private place like Rumble. You guys can give us shit in the stream chat, and give your point of view, maybe tell some jokes, whatever you guys think, as long as it's not sending me any more dirty pictures like you've been sending me, Jay. Does that sound good?
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure.
All right, good stuff.
No more bangers and mass. Gotcha, Gov.
All right, fair enough. Kids, much love from the Unacceptables. I'm Scott. This is Jay. Jay's going to roll us out with a video. Please join us again Thursday night, 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time.
10 p.m. Eastern. Cheers.
We're out.
Oops.
More technical glitches. So we'll be out at...
Here we have remnants from what seems like a past life. Back in the day, I used to build, I built a few custom hot tubs when I had sort of a renovations business. And I did have some liner left over, about 150 feet worth of it. I built a lot of planters using that as a liner. Seems to work pretty good. So I'm just doing that and then filling them up to make sure that they don't have holes. Safety first. That's like to be sure before I go building something any further than that. And always have your fire extinguisher handy. Anyhow, this is going to be a 9-liter hydroponic system. Now the plan there until this morning was to have this be a full NFT system, which is a pump, an aerator, constantly moving water full right up to the basin of the roots. But I've decided that I actually want to start these in these hydroponic vessels in the Craftkey style. So I'll just be filling them right to the brim, putting with the plants on top, and then as the water level recedes, it'll cause the roots to grow fairly straight down. I want to have nice deep roots on those when they get transplanted. And so far it looks great. The sprouts seem to have a lot of little fine hairs that'll all end up being roots later on down the road. So there we go, at a cost of basically nothing, scrap wood, etc. Sealing along the edges with tuck tape. It's a $4 roll of tuck tape. It's building code. If you want to build a house, you seal your joints using tuck tape. So that to me signifies that it is fairly reliable. Now in the spillover drainage, in the execution of that, I did add some silicone. For this, I used aquarium silicone. Make sure you let that dry for 32 hours if you ever use that for anything. If you're going to use that, if you need silicone in your planters and stuff, use that. But do use aquarium silicone, and it's not going to do any damage to your plants or your nutrient system that you're using. Fish tank pump and stuff might get used later on, but as for right now, and even that cost isn't involved in this hydroponic setup. Turned out looking really nice. It's going to go there on. It's going to go in my kitchen window, and that's where I'll be sort of right after the sprouts are done their initial phase, they'll go in there to establish some roots. This is a pretty versatile box. You're going to be able to use this for a Wiccan Wedge, a craft key, an NFT, or an aeroponics setup. Could go with aeroponic lettuce in the summertime. Do just about anything with it right there in the window. There's some space at the end for the bigger stuff, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and it looks really nice. And it's just a fun thing to look at in the morning. You know, they do a lot of their growing at night, so to wake up first thing in the morning and take a peek and see what the little creatures did overnight is a great thing. So we'll update on Thursday. I'm now going to have to figure out some plugs for the spillover lines, because now we're just going to top them up and leave them full and let the water dissipate on its own. So that I'll update on Thursday. And if you follow us throughout the summer months, you're going to find that I'm going to implement all of the major hydroponic systems that are widely used today, give everybody an idea of how those work, cheap ways to build them, what they're going to do for you, etc. You'll constantly be able to see that. I'm going to do that the low-tech way, so that, you know, if you don't have the investment capital to start with real pro equipment, I'll give you a starting route for that. But I'll also let you know what kind of products to use if you're going to invest. Although I do recommend working with your local greenhouse, because they're just going to have better access to things, and you know, you're probably going to save money on shipping and things like that by going that way. So start thinking about seeds. Grab some cheap packages of seeds if you see them. I use West Coast Seeds or Heritage Harvest Seeds, which is in Manitoba.